In case you just tuned in, you're watching News Today right here on Afia TV, and I am Marvelous Apuamaga. We have just been joined we are being joined by Barrister Solumtochukwu Ozobulu, Senior Legal Officer and Lawyers Alert, and we'll be talking about awareness, challenges, and prospects for justice and human rights in Nigeria as we celebrate the International Human Rights Day. You're welcome on the program, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. You?
I'm fine, thank you. So let's get straight right into our discussion. Yeah, how would you say the human rights issues has evolved over the years? But when I'm talking about human rights issues, I talk about how aware an average Nigerian is about their rights and how the violation of our rights has evolved over the years. Would you say it's getting better? Would you say it's getting worse?
Well, getting better or getting worse depends on the angle you're looking at it. So the World Human Rights Day is a day marked to celebrate human rights, to remind everyone on the importance of human rights, how human rights are rights that is behoved on everyone. So it's not given to anyone as a matter of privilege. It is something that is accorded to you by virtue of being a human being. So there's this saying that we are all equal and we should be treated equal with dignity of our persons. This is what human rights is really all about. On the spectrum of Nigerians' understanding of what human rights is and whether we all know our rights, I would say sadly, most Nigerians don't know their rights. And it's not just because they do not want to know their rights, but over and over, some of the rights have been covered with emotions, and we have stopped holding government accountable for things that they do to infringe of the rights of the regular Nigerian. So let's take, for instance, right to life. Right to life, anybody can quote that they know that they have the right to life, but they do not understand the intricacies of what right to life is all about. If I'm supposed to have access to HIV care and services, and I do not have access to HIV care and services, that automatically means that there's an infringement to my right to life. So yes, most Nigerians can quote up from their head, yes, the Constitution accords me fundamental human rights. Yes, I have human rights. They can say right to life, right to dignity of persons, but they do not understand the intricacies of what each and every of those rights insinuate or what it means and its implication to them, and how they too can understand that where your rights stop is where the other person's rights begins. So from that perspective, I would say that Nigerians, we have fair knowledge on what human rights is, but we can do better.
Okay, so before we go into what is done on International Human Rights Day, let's talk about what causes human rights violations. We've seen it's very prevalent in our society today. We see it almost like every day on social media. Even most times we experience it ourselves. So what do you think is the cause of this?
Okay, it's no coincidence that World Human Rights Day ends the 16 days activism against violence, gender-based violence. And that shows you that perpetrators and violators of rights, most times, they do not know. It comes from a place of ignorance, but most times it's from a place of power. When you want to show that I have power over the next person, this is what usually causes human rights infringement. Then structuring in our laws, there are laws that were not thought through, and implications of those laws result to human rights infringement, like the vagrancy laws that we have in our laws, petty offenses. These are the laws that, when you look at it very well, it criminalizes being economically disadvantaged, because if you're homeless, if you walk the streets and you don't know where you're going to, automatically it is considered that you're breaking a law. And what happens? The police arrest you arbitrarily. Most times from lowest alert human rights violation reports, arbitrary arrests, battery, assault, and they are the most heightened human rights abuse. And in recent times, due to digital technology, bullying online. So most people do not know that their actions amount to human rights infringement and human rights abuse on the next person. So generally, I think that's why people infringe on the rights of others, other than the show of power.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. Now, what was done on International Human Rights Day? How is it celebrated?
So it's different thing for different people, but on World Human Rights Day is a day marked to sensitize and consciously remind everyone that human rights are inalienable, human rights are universal. You cannot pick one right and leave the other. So this is what is done on World Human Rights Day. So for different persons, they use different mediums to send out this message. For those who are inclined to art, they can use art to send the message, signifying say no to violence, say no to HGBV, say no to shrinking of the civic space, and say no to battery, say no to assault, say no to bullying. For most, they take a walk, and this walk is to remind everyone of the importance of human rights, of the fact that human rights is something that applies to and should apply to our day-to-day living, and not just when our rights is infringed upon. We should equally consider human rights in every sector, be it the finance sector, I've talked about the finance sector, the private sector, or the non-governmental organization sector. Everybody should be human rights compliant, and everybody should focus on human rights when carrying out activities, their daily lives, and everything.
Okay, so human rights is not something we're hearing for the first time. It's something we even taught while growing up in school, then in primary school, secondary schools, and all of that. But now we're still talking about it because there are still some people who are not aware of their rights. So what should be done to make citizens more aware and also reduce infringement of human rights? Just as we round off our discussion.
Okay, for solutions, things that could be done for people to be aware of their rights is for media platforms like yourself and other media platforms to sensitize the people. When it comes to human rights, media is very instrumental to send the right message to people to avoid misinformation that can lead to rights violation. So we can start from sensitizing the populace, really breaking down the intricacies of each of the rights that we have and what it means to have those rights. Another thing we can do is to strengthen legal frameworks like the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law. This framework can help to reduce the violation of rights of women and girls and everybody, especially as we are looking at eradicating gender-based violence. We can equally look at the administration of criminal justice law, seeing that these laws are effectively implemented. They don't become just one of those laws that we have that exist on paper, but they do not happen. Then we can strengthen institutions to hold government accountable, and allow, like the Human Rights Commission, they need to be strengthened to be able to do their work because they are an independent body, so that they can be able to do their work of monitoring human rights violations, providing legal solutions, and all the necessary solutions that those whose rights have been violated need. Then we can equally address socioeconomic inequalities. Recall I said something about petty offenses and how petty offenses are those crimes that we have in our law books that shouldn't even be there. And they further divide the economic inequality that exists in our society. So addressing this through access to education, access to healthcare, poverty alleviation programs, and creating job opportunities can contribute to human rights. And most importantly, creating systems and structures that would hold perpetrators accountable and strengthening our judicial system to be independent. Because as a lawyer, while in school, one thing that it kept drumming to our ear is that the law is the last hope of the common man. So if the common man cannot leverage on the law to get a remedy, then the law is really not in the common man. So there's need to strengthen judicial system, truly make our judicial system to be independent, so that the common man can believe that when right is violated, I can go to court and there is punishment for the perpetrator and I get the deserved compensation, that my deserved compensation, as well as every other civil society adding their voice to creating awareness for those who are legally inclined, instituting strategic impact litigation and advocating for review of laws and policies so they can align with international treaties and protocols.
All
so
right.
These are the solutions, so that I will not say lots more.
All right. Thank you, Barrister Solumtochukwu Ozobulu, Senior Legal Officer and Lawyers Alert. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that's all on the news today. Many thanks for staying with us. Do not forget to follow us on all social media platforms at Afia TV Official. I am Marvelous Apomaga, saying have a lovely day.